Good afternoon. Hi, how are you? I am not Pat Campbell. I am Rollo Tomassi, and I have with me today my very special guest, Chris Von Erich. Chris is a you've been in a lot of first certainly my comment sections for a while, but you're also like a regular, like permanent installment in the Rule Zero talks and a lot of other stuff. I see you all the time, and I see you not just in my Twitter feed, but also in my Facebook feeds and other things. So before we get started, Chris, why don't you introduce yourself and let everybody know what it is you do and what's your interests?
Sure, absolutely. Well, as everybody who follows me knows, I have the YouTube channel, the Facebook page, and the Twitter page of Von Erich. I just rebranded the show a little bit. I call it now the Red Lens, and I'm doing that because it's going to be more cross-platform, where we get a wide range of people in to talk about very much the subject matter that we're going to talk about tonight: sexual dynamics, men and women relationships. But I found you guys over 2 years ago when you guys were first starting the Red Man Group, when you did the original lineup. I read your books. I watched Rich Cooper's stuff, and it really made an impression on me. And it kind of woke me up from my kind of malaise in terms of how I was thinking. And it was really like a reflectionary thing for me. A lot of people say that, and a lot of people do come to this through trauma, bad breakup, divorce, things of that nature. For me, it was more reflective, where I looked back and I saw how I was living, and I was in that like blue pill traditional mindset, and I was like, gosh, I really was doing these things. I was thinking this way, this was me. And you know, through the course of learning your work and Rich's stuff, it was, it really brought me to the point where I was like, look, I want to do this. I want to get the word out there in my own way, in my own brand. And here I am.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. So, did you have a particular point at which you just how did you discover like the red pill? Did you just go looking for it, or did somebody suggest hey, go read this book kind of thing? Or what was it that sort of brought you to it? Because this is a nice sort of setup or preset here to get into what we're going to talk about, because I think that people always ask me, what is the red pill? And so it's complex. It's something that it's about intersexual dynamics, but it's also about evolutionary psychology. It's also about psychology. It's also about sociology. It can be about religion. It can be about anthropology. There's a lot of little sort of theaters, I think, that are involved in this. But for people, when they come into what we call the red pill with respect to intersexual dynamics, they usually come here because they've had some kind of trauma, or they've had some sort of, a bad breakup, a bad divorce, or maybe they're trying to solve their girl problems, whatever it is. So what is it that made you become to search it out? Because we don't advertise, you have to actually go and find it, right?
That's true. I actually, if truth be told, I came across Rich Cooper's stuff before I came across yours. He was doing a lot of stuff about kind of being a little bit more successful with finding more quality women, more women that were didn't have so many red flags. And I was like, oh wow, this is really, I've found a lot of this in the course of my 20 years of dating, and through that. It snowballed into finding your book, and that was really a watershed moment. And if I say anything, The Rational Male, if I'm sure everybody's out there has it already, but if you haven't, get it, because it is life changing, because it does make you think a different way, and not just in intersexual dynamics, but in your career, the way you think about life. And for me, when I found that stuff, again, it was just very reflective and almost like cathartic, where I was like, oh, wow, I can't believe, I was thinking this way, and I was doing these things. So for me, it was really just that. It was self-motivated, to be very honest with you.
Hmm, hmm. Cool, cool. And okay, so where do you live right now? Like, are you're on the East Coast, right? Is that
Yeah, I'm
right?
in New York
New
City.
York. So you are in New York. And how old are you right now?
I
Ah,
actually just turned 45.
45. Okay,
I
so
know,
you're still younger than me. Okay,
yeah,
that's good.
slightly.
That's good.
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of seniority over you, right?
I was, I was like the kid brother in the '80s movies. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's interesting because that's what we wanted to talk about. Now, your new show, which is you've got a brand new channel, and I brought you on here because I'm just to for full disclosure here, Chris and I've been on your show before, your old show, anyways,
Mhm.
and gosh, we talked for probably about 2 hours on that show. But you've decided to rebrand it as the Red Lens, and it's really kind of along the lines of what we're going to talk about today. And I don't like people have always asked me to write an essay about this topic about the red pill lens and how it sort of changes your perspective on really life, all around you and stuff. But
Mm.
um, I get guys who will say, well, Rollo, I can't listen to 80s music anymore. I can't listen to the stuff that I really enjoy, or I watch movies in a different way now, or I'll eavesdrop on people's conversations, and I'll think to myself, God, I want to help this guy out. I can't believe, or you'll see an argument or something. Like I had a dude, I had this one guy hit me up and he says that he was at Disneyland and he was watching this couple sort of like fighting back and forth, and he said it reminded him of when he was blue pill and before, like when he was still plugged in. And so they had this couple, I guess he was telling me about, were having this really kind of drag out fight, and this is like common for what like really most BPD women will do, but women in general who get very accustomed, let's say, to not having their boyfriend or their husband push back on them. And so it's like this incremental kind of thing where it's like, oh, well, he'll take that shit, well, then I'll push it a little bit further. And so that's what he was telling me what was happening. But he told me this. He says before he became red pill aware, that wouldn't have bothered him, or he would have presumed that the guy was in the wrong, or there was, oh, he's just, oh boy, sucks to be you kind of thing, um and like just conversations or seeing couples like that, maybe it's at a restaurant, maybe it's like I said, a theme park or something, maybe at a club. I think we have more, like, since we have more access to media these days, I think we're a little bit more sensitive to seeing, certainly, being red pill aware. It's one of the reasons why I call it red pill awareness, is because we have this new awareness of, well, intersexual dynamics, but also like things like an alpha widow, things like hypergamy, things like alpha fucks, beta bucks. We listen to conversations, we watch movies, and we start picking apart what the dynamic is in all of this. So yeah, that's funny. Mike's saying this. And guys, we will take questions today. Just let us get let us get a little bit more into the topic, and then we'll take questions. If you have something that's pertinent to what we're talking about, as always, this is how we run it. If you have something that's pertinent, I'll probably put it up on the screen and read it right away. If it's not, I'll usually save it till the end and try to get to everybody. With some advice, or what, I'll give you my take on. I'll give you my red pill lens in seeing it. But so I was talking to this guy, and you are sort of dedicating your show to seeing this, like, I guess this is what you're doing, because you're calling it the red lens, is branching out, I guess, into other like things, topics and people that are outside the red pill sphere, manosphere, whatever you want to call it, and I guess applying the red pill lens to what it is that they're all about. So can you tell us a little bit about the new show and what the sort of purpose is for it?
Right, and you hit it right on the head. And if you actually have seen some of the stuff that I've done recently, it has come into those type of people. Myron Gaines is a fitness trainer. Um, uh, Sergeant and Sergeant Benjamin Janice from the military. Literally, he's on deployment in Afghanistan, and we had these conversations where he would bring up stuff about relationships and guys in the military and what was happening to them when they were coming back. And we were having these conversations about, well, what happened with that? And the guy was surprised because, it blew up and he didn't realize what was going on in between. In this case, it was the guy's wife and, and himself. And, why did she cheat? So, we had that discussion and it's very telling. So you're absolutely right. It's a cross platform in terms of the type of people I'm getting in, but it's coming back to the conversation of all these principles of, how is it looking to you now as opposed to before you started thinking this way? And I have it all the time. You talked about observations. I can't tell you how many times I'm in the restaurant and I'm overhearing conversations, or I'm watching, men and women talking and having their different conversations. And it blows my mind now because I'm like, holy crap, they're having this conversation that I read about, in your chapter, your book, The Rational Male. And there you go. So it's building off of all that.
Cool. So I like that. I like the idea that I've said this before, like at the very beginning of this year, I said, I think it's time that we sort of expand beyond what I don't want things to get too inbred. Right. One of the really kind of tragedies I saw happen with the red pill subreddit was, as soon as it got quarantined, it kind of got inbred. Like there was no fresh questions. There was no like outside influence. And sometimes that outside influence, like I think a lot of people will say, well, you want to, sort of, I don't know, like keep the conversation going, I guess, but you need to have new questions. And sometimes those questions can be old questions too. In like somebody says, I don't understand why you think X, Y, or Z, right? Just because I wrote these books and just because I, do these shows and I talk about this, and it doesn't mean that everybody knows what I'm talking about all the time. Like one of the things people always say is, what does AFBB mean? Or what is a PUA? What is a MGTOW? What is, all these acronyms. And so I think a lot of people get a little off put because of that. If they're newbies, right? If they come into this space and they don't know, what it is we're talking about. So it can be kind of overwhelming. I've had people, and I tried to do this actually in the third book. A lot of people asked me, they said, can you provide us with some kind of like dictionary or some sort of like reference manual for like, what's a PUA, what's a MGTOW, what's RSD, what's this, what's, all of the sort of the jingoisms, I guess, that are familiar with this here. And I'm trying, like SMV is another one, or SMP, like sexual market value or sexual marketplace.
Right.
I think, or AFC, average frustrated chump. They try to, they say, well, that's because you guys are like some sort of cult, or that's because you have some sort of like in-group thing. And so in my fourth book right now, I'm trying to sort of step out from all of that. I'm trying to get away. I'm trying not to abbreviate. Only like I'll usually, like if I use an abbreviation, I make sure that I spell out the whole thing before I start using that abbreviation later on in the essay or the book or whatever. So I'm trying to step away from that, but I understand that it can be really, really kind of daunting. But I do think that we need to have new blood come in, and we need to be able to debate our cases, right? To say, hey, look, this is what we see. Because I think a lot of people, I said this back in 2018 and 2019, I said the red pill, and as a result, by association, MGTOW and some of these other, MRAs and stuff like that, we're going to have a PR problem very soon. And I think we're already seeing it. We're kind of seeing it right now. I think it's sort of left the red pill, and I think it's sort of moving over to MGTOW right now, because that's what people recognize, or it's like it's just the loose brand of the moment. It might be MRAs later, it might be a red pill again later on. And so I think that it's important for us to be able to speak, like not necessarily authoritatively, but certainly from a if people have questions, to be able to answer those questions. And these are questions from people who are outside. So, so I commend you for that. I think that we all kind of need to do that. I am looking at the chat here. We can talk about PUAs and stuff like that too later on if you guys want to. So what is the red pill lens, right? I think, well, I'll just give you my definition of it, and you're wearing red lenses right now, so let's, yeah, okay.
I'm the embodiment of it.
Yeah. So, the way I see the red pill lens is this: is that once you get into this stuff, once you read, once you sort of become, this becomes an interest of yours. I'm not saying that you have to be some like cultist, or you have to be some like dedicated, you don't have to have your own blog, you don't have to have your own Twitter account or whatever. But I think that one of the reasons why we call it the manosphere is because enough people get together and we sort of coalesce into like a tribe, or we coalesce into some sort of loose organization, what I call like an aggregate of men discussing all of this stuff. And this really happened, I think, back in the early 2000s, when we first started having like internet forums, and then blogs became a big deal, and guys would get together and they would share their experiences. Of course, in the beginning, it was all about pickup. It was all about trying to solve our reproductive problem, right? How do I get laid? You get laid all the time, Mr. E. How do you do that, right? And so we start comparing notes, and as a result of that, we start to see commonalities. I was talking to Dr. Smith and Dr. Sean Smith and Richard Cooper on Monday, and we were discussing hypergamy. And one of the things I said was, I am very good, and I think a lot of people are, at least in this sphere anyways, very good at pattern recognition. And I think pattern recognition is where the red pill lens really starts. So what are some of the patterns, like you're starting this show, obviously, like if somebody came to you and like you're interviewing somebody from outside of the sphere, and they related to you one of their situations, how do you think you would, I don't say diagnose that, but how do you think you would view their, like, what would your process be anyways? How would you view what it is that they're talking to you about?
Well, again, it's kind of tough, because now that I see things the way they are, I already know when they start kind of rehashing the story, kind of where it's going to go before it's finished. So I mean, typically you hear stories about, oh well, I see this a lot with the married guys I run into. Oh well, things were great, the first 5 or 6 years, and then all of a sudden we're not getting any sex. We're not. She's not the same way. She does, she insults me now. And a lot of times it goes back to the same things. We talk about this all the time, that, you forgot to continue to be the guy that you talk about as being the hell yes guy. You somewhere along the line, guy, you stopped being that. And that was basically 9 times out of 10, that's what it is. They forget how to be the guys they were back then, because they feel that when they get into that relationship, they now have to cease being that, because they have whatever responsibility they've built up in their mind, and that's just not the case.
So one of the things that I see a lot whenever I'm sort of confronted with the red pill lens, I guess I should probably tell you this quick story. When I came up with the idea of the red pill lens, of course, people were saying, once you become red pill aware, there's really no going back. And it's sort of like that scene in the Matrix where Neo sort of pukes on the deck of the ship, and he's just like, make it stop. He did, his mind has trouble assimilating or accepting what the real truth is, and that he's no longer part of the, being in the Matrix like he was before, and he pukes on the floor. And of course, what Morpheus says, he asks Morpheus, he says, "There's no going back, is there?" And Morpheus says, no, but if you could, would you really want to, knowing the truth, right? And I think that a lot of people, I think there's two kinds of people who accept. There's one kind of person who accepts the red pill lens, I guess, or the red pill awareness, and then there's the guy who really kind of doesn't want to deal with what he sees. I've said this before. Actually, I think I've done a show with Pat about this before. The stages of unplugging are very similar to the stages of grief, like accepting death, whether it's your own death or it's the death of a loved one or something. And people always think that that's really nihilistic or really kind of hopeless. And I said, well, the thing is that the reason why I always compared it to that the stages of grief is because you're literally killing off your old self. You're now unplugged and you're now cut away from the way that you used to think. And you're really kind of mourning the death of that old you, like the guy that used to think these things, or the guy that used to be able to walk down the street and not have to see what, or not have to know what he knows, or like I said, listen to conversations, watch a movie, listen to an old song, read an old book, those things. I think one thing that's really kind of in a lot of people's faces is stories and storytelling. And I think that's really a tough one. Now, I don't know about you, because I don't know how long you've been doing this, but you've been in the comment section long enough to know this. But like, people will joke around. One of the reasons why we call it the red pill lens is because it's like that movie They Live, where it was a Roddy Piper, man. He puts on the glasses and he sees the aliens, right? Or he sees how the real world is, or how obey, right? Or buy more, consume, all these signs. The advertising turns into the actual base message of, what it is that's going on. And people's, it's a joke. People, will joke about that, but the problem is you can't take them off.
I know.
At least in They Live, you could take them back. You could put them back on, right? And so,
I'm not beating anybody up to wear the glasses like he did.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have a really tough time because you can't take the glasses off.
Right, no, you can't.
And that's the hardest part right there. And yeah, so like when I think one of the things that's really tough that we sort of have to, particularly somebody like me, but like in you too now, because you're getting into doing this sort of on the regular, you have to be careful. And maybe you can speak to this. You really have to be careful of who you try to tell, because the red pill lens is like, what was it? I mean, they even addressed this in the Matrix movie, right? Like they don't release a mind after a certain age because the mind has trouble letting go. Correct. And so it seems like the younger you are, really, I've had people tell me this before. They say, well, I'm glad I got this when I was 16 or 18 or 22 or whatever. Because, now I can see things clear. Now I can use this information to make better decisions, better choices. And that's I think that's really sort of the most important part of it.
I had one guy who talked about this, and I showed him, your work, and he was like, look, I know this makes sense, but I'm just too far down the road in terms of marriage. I couldn't do this if I wanted to. Then he a litany of excuses, and that was it.
Yeah, I have the oldest guy I've ever counseled was 70 years old. And yeah, really tough, right? He heard me on Pat Campbell's terrestrial radio show, and he hit me up and he says, Rollo, I need some help. Can you help me out? I'm in a sexless marriage. I've been in a sexless marriage for almost 40 years. And, and I'm not going to name names or anything. Actually, I'm not going to go into any of his details, but let's just say for sake of argument, like, here's the general sense. The general sense is the guy had reached a certain age, had reached 70 years old, and was looking back on his life and all of the decisions that he had made in his life up to that point and where he was in his life at that point, and then realized that the reason he made those decisions was based on, first of all, bad information, because it was still, blue pill inspired, but though that that he was basing those decisions on the bad information that he was led to believe. And remember, it's not like somebody like sat down and had a talk with the guy and said, here's what you should believe. Here's some blue pill tenets you need to believe all. It's a process. Mm-hmm. And so when we have this blue pill conditioning, it's from the time you're 5 years old or whatever. When you're, like they say, 5-year-olds you're a sponge, right? You're absorbing everything. That's why I keep going back to the age of 5 years old, in case everybody was wondering. But then you get to be about 25. So you got a 20-year span from the time you're 5 years old to you're about 25 years old. And in that time, you've absorbed probably 97% of what you're going to be for most of your life, or your belief sets. And I laughed about this a little bit. Let me tell you about it. Mike Liff says, let's see, went red pill at 40, feel emotionally bulletproof. That's good. But you know what? How much more bulletproof would you be if you were like 31 years old, right? Or 21 years old? You'd have a whole lot more, time, and you'd be able to make better decisions.
That's where I was. I would say this a lot to you. I wish I found it when I was 21. Mm-hmm. Goodness. So.
Yeah. So I wanted to start with a few things. Now, this is a little more lighthearted, I guess, or not quite as deep, but so when it comes to like seeing, and you guys in the chat, you can let me know too. What are some of the things that you can't enjoy anymore because of what you know? Like, guys will tell me this all the time. I'll just start really quickly. They say music. Music is the number one thing that's really tough for them to listen to anymore.
Yeah, and for me, that's the same way. And this is gonna be funny. A little tidbit of information about me. Even though I grew up in New York, born and raised here, I was big into country because my late father was big into it. So it was kind of indoctrinated. Now, forget about it. I listen to songs now from the 80s, 90s, and what have you. And I just can't hear it. There's songs that are just there's one from this guy Paul Overstreet, Daddy's Come Around to Mom's Way of Thinking. I'm just like, are you kidding me? I got to turn it off. And it's stuff like that.
It's hard too, because it's like, so like if I'm listening to old 80s music, particularly old 80s music, now you have to remember the lyrically and like what like musicians and artists were doing like in the 70s and the 80s and really up until like the late 90s. You have to remember all of those songs and all of those stories and all of that bad poetry, whatever you want to call it. A lot of that was still inspired by guys who were stuck in that blue pill mindset, in that really thick, syrupy, sappy, romantic-y kind of stuff. Like my wife, for instance, is very much into like REO Speedwagon, right? And like power ballads of the 80s kind of thing. And I mean, I can still enjoy it for being a musician myself. I can still enjoy it for the musical side of things. And I understand what they're doing. And so I kind of have to be able to sort of separate that cognitive dissonance, because it's kind of hard to sing along to, Keep On Loving You or something like that, when you know what the lyrics were about and what motivated that song. And it's hard to get behind that. Now, when you're 14 years old and you go, I'm gonna keep, you keep, you hit it, and I'll sing for you. But that, because that's what you feel and that's where you're at. I think that a lot of what sort of makes an impression upon us musically, artistically, when we're younger, is I think we want to think that we've got it figured out, or for whatever reason. Maybe it's because we have more testosterone in our bloodstream when we're guys, but there's the music that spoke to me was like really powerful, like metal music was what I was always into. But that's not to say that I couldn't listen to some sort of like 80s stuff. But now, man, whenever it comes on the radio, I can't, man. I can't sing along. Let's just say that. I mean, I still enjoy the music, but from a musical sense, but I can't sing along with it, because it seems, I don't know, almost seems wrong.
Yeah, no,
I don't know why.
It's that, it's actually very good, because for me anyway, I can kind of separate it now. I can separate the enjoyment of it from the realizing of what they're really getting at.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just turn myself, I turn my lens off, I take my glasses off,
Mm-hmm.
and I can kind of get through it.
Yeah. Tom Bombadil, this is great. Yeah, you're right, man. Ruined Boys of Summer. If you go ahead and you listen to the Don Henley song Boys of Summer, and there's actually the Ataris did a remake of that, which is actually better. But I mean, lyrically, I mean, I can't even listen to either one anymore. And it's like, country music. I think if you're in a country, it would almost be worse because a lot of that stuff is based on a blue pill mindset, on God. Now, remember, like it's hard to find faults, or it's hard to like tell these, to say, well, I can't listen to that because I'm red pill and that's just not where I'm at. You're like, you're too cool to listen to it, right? I think what's really tough is going back in time and thinking about this, because like if I go and I listen to a song that I used to listen to like 35 years ago, and I can sing along with it, and I go, what the hell am I doing? I sing, but then it's not just the I can't sing along with it part. It's it's knowing that back then that's nobody had any more information than that. Nobody knew any differently. And like people hit me up. Did you see the movie The Dirt on Motley Crue?
Oh yeah.
That was on Netflix not too long ago. Oh man, I almost cried at that movie because, and people go, well, it was it was The Dirt, right?
Yeah.
But it reminded me of all the stuff that I was going through back in the 80s, because that was my scene, right? Was the Hollywood metal scene all through high school. And then of course, once I got out of high school, then that was my scene, right? And so I'm looking at this and seeing what's going on, and it's sort of like this, this time warp. And then of course what happens is we get that and we take that story and we filter it, not necessarily through a red pill lens, but we filter it through like the sensibilities of where we are now. And so what was the first thing I saw was these articles written by 24, 25-year-old girls, women right now, who hated that movie because it was so sexist and it was so it was so degrading to women. Like, I mean, Nikki Sixx is doing lines of blow off of a stripper's ass in the movie, right? Because that's what he did. That's where people were back then. That's what we did back then. We partied. We didn't take ourselves so fucking seriously. I think the real, so there's the aspect of looking back and thinking, okay, times are different. Then there's like looking forward, and what are people going to think of? Like, what is the millennial generation going to think of? My generation back when we were 25 years old or whatever it was. And I think what's interesting is like when I'm reading these articles, these little girls, these 24 or 25-year little girls who are writing for Vice or whatever the blog is they're writing for, they're like appalled at it. I'm like, if you were back there, you would be doing exactly the same goddamn thing. You would be the one. You'd be the one whose ass would be the serving up the cocaine, man.
To the table.
Yeah. It just it's amazing to me. And so what's interesting to me, so for you and I, we look at these things through a red pill lens. Okay. Now, if you're a woke millennial, you're going to see that movie and like I know because I was there, but like they're going to look through their millennial lens, whatever it is, woke lens, and they're going to have a take on it too. And so I don't want to get in. We will get into this later because a lot of people will say, well, the red pill lens is just your personal bias and you can't enjoy anything or see anything without that. And I think it's a little bit more complex and a little bit deeper than that. But so there's music. The other thing I was going to say is, and there's movies. Sure. So like, what movies can you no longer watch now?
Well, a lot of those old romantic comedies are just like they're
Pretty Woman.
Oh yeah, Pretty Woman, Last American Virgin. Oh, the ending of that is a killer. The guy's doing everything for the girl throughout the whole movie, and it just blows up in his face. So a lot of that, a lot of those, the rom-coms, even the modern ones are just, really tough, really tough.
G. Lawrence here. Yeah, I 100% agree. He says, what's been hard for me is selecting films to audition for because everything's about toxic masculinity or female empowerment, saving the poor, weak man. Yeah, that's the archetype right now. That's the archetypal story right now. Oh boy, that opens up a whole nother big can of worms. I'm going to throw this one on here really quickly too, because this, what was it? John from Modern Life Dating, I think he posted this on his Instagram, but I'm gonna show it really quickly because it's pretty funny. This right here. This is a meme, right? Okay. Forrest Gump is, and this was in the 90s too, right? This was like 91, I think, 92, somewhere around there. And of course, you know, the joke is, so long, Forrest, I'll be back when you're a shrimp billionaire and I'm a single mom with AIDS. Right? And we laugh at this, but now, did you ever see this in the theater? Did you watch Forrest Gump? This is an Academy Award winning, I think didn't he win like Best Actor or something like that?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So he's winning an Academy Award for this. And let me pull that out. And, you know, okay, so that's the joke, but like, when you go back and you remember that movie was based on like the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, right? Because it was produced in the 90s, and all the things that poor, stupid, ignorant. You know, I guess the idea is that what was it? Was Forrest Gump like autistic or something like that? Did he have like he had something that was wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, autistic savant kind of guy who just sort of stumbles through life. And things just sort of like life happens to him, right? Not he doesn't happen to life. Life happens to him. And so he falls in love, and a very stereotypical thing is the boy meets girl, girl doesn't want to get with him. But like later on, when he has a utility to her, she comes back. And it's movies like this that it's almost like watching the stories that I have an even harder time with than the music, because the song is over in 3 or 4 minutes, right? But the movie is a 2-hour movie, and you got to sit there and sort of ruminate over it after a while.
Watch it play out.
Yeah. Queens of Angels Catholic Store, really. Red lenses are to be worn at night to block blue wavelengths, light which can reduce melatonin production and disrupt the circadian rhythms. Thank you for that nice tidbit there.
Be wearing these.
Speaking of autistic, was it husband, wife had 2 kids together. He still spins plates behind wife's back, then took co-business money and ran away with a new woman. She left to raise 2 kids alone as he read. Okay, we'll get to that later on, dude. Just hold tight with that. Where's this? Do I have one? Sam, will you copy and paste that for me? New Nova's comment there. We'll get to that at the end of the show. But so when I see like Forrest Gump is a good one. What was it? And pretty much any of the was it the Mrs. Doubtfire movies? Mrs. Doubtfire is like a horror movie to me now, because if you go back and you have a red pill lens and you see what's really going on in that movie, we laugh at it, and it's Robin Williams. He's funny, right? And he's in drag, but really the movie is about him losing his kids and wanting to be closer to his kids.
Yeah, and he has
to resort to cross-dressing and acting like a woman just so he can prove that he's actually a good father to a woman who left him, not because he had anything, like he didn't have a drug addiction or I don't believe he was alcoholic or anything like that, but because he couldn't provide for the family, or he was just like, he was kind of like this like goofy, ridiculous dad, and she wanted to get with Pierce Brosnan. She wanted to get with the guy who was a stereotypical alpha male, and just basically what Dalrock would say, detonate the family so that she could get with a hot alpha dude who's the stepdad, who's of course, the perfect stepdad, and all of the slapstick comedy that goes on in there. And I'm like, this is not a comedy. I know. This is a horror movie is what this is. And that's another one. Sleepless in Seattle, very good. Yes, that's another really, that's prime prime one there. Sleepless in Seattle. What was it? When Harry Met Sally.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of red pill truths in there, but not meant to be red pill truths. And I think what gets me is how ignorant we were during those times. Like, I enjoyed Mrs. Doubtfire when I was younger, right? I enjoyed Forrest Gump. You know, and you don't see the overall, you're only seeing the funny, you're seeing it part by part by part. You're only seeing the trees and not the forest.
And I think, and I do this a lot on my show. I talk about the media and how the media, ingrains this stuff, and they have been doing it, and they keep doing it. And it's just feeding you, don't, we say it, they live, right? We talked about later, don't think for yourself. Don't think about the, what's going on here in the background. Here's this comedy movie. It's funny, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, like you said, in the Doubtfire example, the guy's dressing up like a woman just to see his children.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, that's scary to me. Let's see. I know, Sam, I know you're not on Facebook right now, but can you pick up Sally's question here too? I'll get to you later, Sally. Let's see. Aaron, ouch. Red pill ruined nothing for me. Confirmed what I wasn't off base with what I always knew anyways. Red pill represents ops to enjoy life. Yes. TRP allowed me to go instead of hang in there. I call it the joy of TRP. Yeah. I think a lot of people are like that too. A lot of people will say, well, I get this a lot, and I think probably even you said this at one point. Like, a lot of people will say, like, when they read my book, they go, "I'm so glad you read this," or I read this. I'm so glad I wrote this, because it affirms for me what I always kind of knew was there, and I always sort of felt was like scratching in the back of my head, but I never had I couldn't articulate it. I couldn't put words to what it is that you reveal in your books, and that's another thing, like I was saying before, is when you go back and when you look at those movies, or when you read stories, even like from before, and by before I mean like 90s, 80s, 70s, somewhere around that you're really into, you go back with that red pill lens, and you pick it apart automatically. Like, I think it almost like encourages you to see things from a bigger perspective or in a different way.
Right.
What else do you have on here? Glenn Lawrence says, and Glenn, I did get your emails, just so you know. Glenn Lawrence says, here sent you that on script on Twitter. I turned it down. I couldn't be a part of it. Would you consider writing a screenplay with positive masculine theme throughout? I'm glad you brought that up, Lawrence, because I'm about to talk about that here in just a second. One of the things that I've said on are you familiar with the guys on the Masculine Geek podcast? Do you know those guys?
I had them on.
Travis, yeah, those guys, right? I've been on there. I love going on there because I can sort of let down my hair, right? I can just sort of, geek out with them and have a, I want to say that I can have a non-red pill conversation with them, but I can't even do it like in just casual conversation anymore. That was another aspect of this. But on that show, when I'm talking to them, we've had this discussion. I never had it on this show though. What I think, I'm going to give you guys a $1 million advice right here. Do exactly what G. Lawrence just said. Write that script. Write that story. Write that red pill fiction. As soon as I am done with book 4, I'm shifting over to red pill fiction, because I really think that is an untapped gold mine for a lot of people. Because right now, no one knows how to write those old characters. No one knows how to write Captain Kirk. No one knows how to write Han Solo. No one knows how to write Indiana Jones, like the devil-may-care, happy-go-lucky alpha male archetype. They don't know how to do that anymore. And if they do, they're afraid to put it into text. They're afraid that they will, cancel culture will eliminate them. So here, that's that. You want to know what I plan to do? I plan to write some red pill fiction myself, because I think this, certainly this generation of writers, I mean, we're talking like, if you go back to like Captain Kirk, okay, Star Trek, let's not talk about the 60s version of the TV show. Let's just talk about the movies. Like from the, was it 79 was the first Star Trek movie. Mm-hmm. So you've got the archetype of Captain Kirk, who's been around really since the 60s, but here we are now. I think a lot of people would be appalled at that. I think one of the reasons why we keep going back to these old stories and these old franchises, like the all-female version of Ghostbusters, the all-female version of the Terminator, the all-female I just heard, what was it? God Saw It. I was watching God Saw's channel, and he was saying, he was reading some sort of reaction to David Schwimmer from Friends. There's another, like, sitcoms from the 90s. Watch Friends. Oh my God, it is an education in blue pill, thinking right there. But David Schwimmer says, I think that they should do an all black or an all Asian or an all female or all, like, a woke version of Friends for like the 2020s. Like, we should go back and sort of like rewrite those things so that so it's not just, 3 white guys and 3 white women, that it needs to be woke. And I'm like, why? Why not just create something new? Why not do something that is, if you want to keep it in that same kind of funny lifestyle, whatever was going on at the time, fine, stick with that. But why not go forward? Why do we keep going back? And the reason is because no one knows how to go forward. No one knows how to create anything new, because the new stuff that comes out is bullshit. And so what do? Well, we can't make that work. So let's go back, but we can't actually redo Friends. We can't actually redo Aliens, or Star Wars is another great example of this. We can't go back to those the way they are. We have to, if we're going to make sequels, or if we're going to do something different to them, then we've got to find some way to do that. Well, how do we make the woke version of that? What do you got here, Thor? Thor says, Chris Von Erich and Rollo Tomassi and the same screen. The super chat is for you too. Nice. Thanks, guys.
Thor's a good guy.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, just while I got you here, I'm going to throw where'd it go? There it is. This is Chris Von Erich's Facebook page. If you please make a note of it and go follow him. He also has, let's see, where did it go? I've got your other one up here too. I'll put these in the description as well for later on, but this right here, in case you guys were wondering, where'd that go? I know this is going to be kind of tough. I'll put this in the chat. This is your, because you don't have your name as, you don't have a custom named one just yet, because it's coming. New. It's coming. Yeah, it's coming. It'll come sooner or later. I'll put this in the chat here. I just wanted to give you your plugs there for stuff. Oh, and then this is Von Erich. If you want to follow him on Twitter, he's a good guy. Please do. What else do we got here? Valdemar Perez Jr. Isn't odd? Amber Heard played a character with super red hair in Aquaman and appears BPD. Yes. The red pill lens makes you feel a lot less guilty about being a guy, and shined a light on my own dysfunctions. Yeah, that's another good one. So it's like, up to this point, we've been just talking about like music and media, storytelling, characters. Really, characters is creating that. Like, nobody's going to create another Han Solo. Nobody's going to create another. Let me see. Oh, I got one more here. So right now we're looking at like stories and music and pop culture, really, and how we're going to look through it through our modern lens, no matter what, because of the technology that we have. We have what I call new order technology. So this is another red pill lens. When I wrote this essay called Body Language, I had a lot of people send me pictures of, like, casual pictures of couples. Mm-hmm. And I would say a good 90% of these, 85, maybe 90% of these, the guy is always, kissing on the girl and, hugging up with mommy. And again, I'm very good at pattern recognition, and I see this. And so I sort of draw my conclusions based on the commonalities from all, like, at least 1,000 different pictures, and looking at the commonalities. You couldn't do that before, because in order for me to actually have to do that prior to the internet, I would have to go and collect all of these pictures, and then, write a book about it, or whatever. Now I have the app, because we have digital photography. I can do that. That's the technological advantage that I think that we have right now, that I think foments the red pill lens. So I can go back in time and look at Friends, or I can look at the Cosby Show, or whatever was popular before, and I can look at that and I go, oh my God, how is it not obvious to everyone at this time that, Ross is a, unconscionable beta, and he's even probably beneath that. In no real world would a woman as choice as Jennifer Aniston get with this guy, right? And so we see this now, but they didn't see that back then. And I think that's one of the things, for me anyways, that's one of the eye-opening things about having the red pill lens is, oh my God, back right up until like 1998, somewhere around there, like 20 some odd years ago, people were ignorant of it. They didn't know any different. That's why they were writing songs like Keep on Loving You, or the country songs you were just talking about. What else I got here? Let's see. Renegade shows. There is no modern day John Wayne, right? He literally spanked the female protagonist in several of his movies. Yes. Now imagine trying to create that character today.
Oh, it would never get signed off on. It wouldn't go past the planning stage. What are you talking about?
Yeah. YOLO. I'll read this really quickly. YOLO says, I wonder why many companies has started to use colored people in advertisements the last year, even here in Norway, where most people are white. Yeah, that's another thing is, we do need Married with Children. Remember Married with Children? Now that, like, how that got, like, you could never make Married with Children in this
no way
millennium. You could never make a show like that. Did you ever play, like, on I think it was on Nintendo or whatever? Did you ever play Mike Tyson's Punch Out?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. Imagine trying to make that game today with Piston Honda and Glass Joe and all the guys you had to beat up to get to Mike Tyson. You could never make that game today.
They'd get to Glass Joe and they'd be like, wait a second.
That's it. Yeah, anything past Glass Joe, forget it. Because they were all basically racial archetypes, and you could never do something like that. And it was a great game. It was fun. Everybody grew up with it. Nobody was like mad at each other because of that. It was fun. In fact, you would like try to cheat it. You know what the cheat codes were for, dodge, punch, finish him. Those kinds of things. Yeah, it's just amazing. Again, I don't talk about racial stuff, but I understand what you're talking about. You can't do those things now, and you won't be able to write those characters. And I think that, like, I'll give you an example here, and then we'll move on. I'm sure, like, you probably heard about, remember when ABC, of all, Disney owned ABC, brought back the Roseanne show.
Oh yeah.
And it was out for a while until she decided to have her meltdown. And then look what Disney, because it's not ABC, is owned by Disney. Look what Disney did is the minute that happened is they canceled the show, because they wanted to cancel the show. They didn't go, okay, well, finish out the season and you're done. No, they killed it immediately right there, because they didn't like that show, even though it was a #1 hit show on that network when it came out, because the stories and the characters are old school, and they were still the same characters, and they were like, they didn't take no shit. They're like, they were the same characters they were back in the late 80s, and I think into the early 90s was when Roseanne was out. And that is really challenging to the sensibilities of, well, the 20 teens anyways. I think it was in 2016, 2017 when it was out. And it was a #1 show, and just launched straight to the top. And why do you think that is? Because it was challenging. It was something that people weren't seeing. That's why I'm saying, like, you can go, and if you go and you write those stories, Write a red pill fiction. Write those red pill characters right now. They will be popular because nobody knows them. They don't, it's the fact that those people, like that character, will be a rebel today, a very strong rebel today.
They try to do that with Tim Allen too in his show.
Yeah, Last Man Standing. Yep, there it is, right there. Thanks, Gubar. Yeah, and it's a great show. It's funny. And what's interesting to me is, like, back then, I never watched sitcoms. I didn't care about that. I know I'm familiar basically with some of the characters from Roseanne, just because it was such a popular show back then. I'm familiar with who Tim Allen is. I remember, like, Tool Time. You couldn't do Tool Time now. You couldn't do that now. So all I'm saying is this: is if you want to make a lot of money and you're a creative individual, write red pill songs, write scripts for red pill sitcoms, write scripts, write movies, stories, whatever, in a red pill vein, and you will make a shit ton of money right now, because it pushes against that grain. It pushes against that. And people want it. They're starving for it right now because Hollywood won't do it. Hollywood there's never been, I don't feel pretty comfortable in saying this, there has never been such a lack of creativity in Hollywood than there is right now.
And there's enough of like streaming media services that you can get that stuff on. One of those platforms to do it. Right.
And that's a great observation too, because I just wrote about this. In fact, I'm doing sort of a follow-up essay to my 4,000 word essay on the new order and the old order thinking versus new order thinking. I think we're kind of, if we're not there already, we're moving into a new age of enlightenment, and that enlightenment can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. And I'm just using that for dramatic effect. Thank you very much. But we're moving into an era where we have unprecedented access to information. Like I was saying before, like, people were sending me thousands of pictures of couples. That was the only era that's possible is now. The only way I could ever, like, parse that out or have the interest to parse it out is today, because we have digital photography, we have the internet, blah, 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 blah. We could never do this. Like, even just like 15 years ago, you couldn't do this. Now you can. Seinfeld was I like Seinfeld. I thought Seinfeld was a pretty funny show. But it was a show about nothing. And I think that's what made it kind of fun, was like, again, like all these old shows that were so good, they just didn't take themselves seriously.
Yep.
And like right now, you can't produce a show that steps on the wrong toes. And unless you do Roseanne, step on the wrong toes, and it's the #1 show. So those are examples of media. Like, let's think of some other examples. Like I was saying, like listening to conversations. What other examples of the red pill lens can you come up with? Like, will you be talking about on your show?
Well, I do a lot with, in terms of people out there. I still do topics in terms of dating and getting out there, and being social. So, I think pointing the lens at how men and women interact and how they stumble through that. I mean, and you say this all the time, there's a lot of guys that just don't know, how to interact with women, and they don't know what to say. They don't know the first thing. So it's really a lot of that I'll be focusing on going forward.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's another area right there, right? That's advice. Like, remember, okay, I get this from like Pat Campbell will send me things. Like, we bounce like articles and ideas off of one another all the time. And every so often, and I know you guys have seen this because I do this in my Twitter feed as well, is I'll get these like sort of Dear Abby stories. Like there's the Vice columns, like the Dear Abby kind of stuff. Like there are several of these at like Jezebel, or the Huffington Post is another one. You don't see them too much. I don't like, it's not, I guess, politically correct, or it's not like, it's against polite sensibilities for someone like me. God forbid it's a man that does it, but like, it's against polite sensibilities to to have any other narrative in advice on your relationships or dating or whatever than anything except for the standard Oprah, Dr. Phil, Ann Landers, whatever, those kinds of things. It's against that grain to do that. But every time Pat sends me one of these, I read it, and I read it from a red pill lens perspective. And I'll go, why is she saying this? Why is everything, like when I talked about this with Dr. Sean Smith, when women and men go into counseling together, who is it that primarily brings the two of them in there? Usually the woman.
Right.
Going to see a female therapist. Well, what's the conversation? What happens there? What is the theme or the premise of why they're there in the first place? There's a great show. I'm sort of picking my way through it right now. It's on Showtime. Unfortunately, I had to go and you guys don't know the kind of work I do for you guys. I had to go. It's a show on Showtime, and I forget the name of the show right now, but it's Love Stories or some shit like that. But it's kind of a semi-realistic documentary of a marriage / relationships therapist, and it sort of documents the cases of, as you might guess, very woke couples. There's the gay couple, there's the lesbian couple, there's the mixed race couple, there's the regular couple, there's the couple where one of them is really into sex, and the guy wants to, they're in the sexless marriage, archetype, that kind of stuff. And so I'm listening to these, and I don't even have to listen to the whole thing. I can just sort of pick it apart as I go. And I get the idea that the whole pretense, the whole theme, like the atmosphere, the whole context in which that problem is solved starts in a feminine primary gynocentric theme. So success in keeping these two together, or solving their sex problem, or negotiating desire, or all this other great stuff that they think is possible, success is defined by whatever benefits the woman's mating strategy the most.
Sure.
Whatever is her, is her thing, whatever would keep the couple together. I talked about this with Dr. Sean Smith as well. I said, well, like, what does success in that practice look like? And again, I'm
right.
seeing this through red pill lens. I said, well, why is it that success is keeping them together, keeping the family together, when she clearly has no desire for him? Well, he'll go and he'll do all of these things for her so that she'll have desire for him. I go, okay, but at the end of the day, he's not making a genuine, maybe the guy has no genuine desire. He just is doing this because it's the quickest way back to having sex with her again, so that they can stay together in her gynocentric. He has no frame, it's her frame, but her frame is the correct frame.
Right.
And I will probably write actually I already have an essay in my drafts folder about feminine correctness. And I think that's one of the things that I see.
And in that scenario, I don't even think that's not even a long-term solution, because at the end of the day, they're going to still be back in the same place, because that guy has changed.
Yeah.
To get that outcome. Well, how long is that going to last?
Yeah. They change the symptoms. They don't solve the problem. Conk says, can you think of a single movie or book with a female protagonist that has actually completed a hero's journey? Wow. Can you? I don't know. I don't think I can.
Not on the spot like this. I'd have to.
Not like that. Yeah. Okay. So here's what I said. I'm gonna take that off your face right there. There we go. What I was telling the guys, what I was telling the guys on Masculine Geek was I don't think that a female writer can write a heroic character, because the hero's journey is really written from a masculine experience. So when you see stuff like Star Wars is the easiest example, right? You've got Rey, you got this female, and everybody, what the first thing anybody said right after the first movie is she's a Mary Sue, meaning that she just came out of the box, and she knows how to be a Jedi, and she knows how to use a lightsaber, and she knows how to do all of these things that took 3 movies for for Luke Skywalker to figure out how to do. Like, that's the Mary Sue, is we just give her all of these things. And the reason for that, I think, is it's either women who are writing this, or it's men who are writing from a gynocentric perspective when they create characters like that. So when it is a woman who is writing this, the reason that women don't know how to write the hero's journey, I'm going to really piss off a lot of people with this. The reason they don't know how to write the hero's journey is because they don't share the same masculine experience as men. Why is that? Well, it goes back to, it's similar to what I was debating with Abu American about respect. For women, respect is something that is just there. It is automatic. They don't have to earn respect. It is just something that they have as default. Whereas for men, to become respectable, they have to earn that. They have to merit that. They have to become someone who is respectable. They have to have respectability. They have to have something that you look up to the guy for, whether it's, you can call that admiration or whatever you want to. But for women, women just are, and men must become. So when you try to put a character like Rey into that heroic cast, you try to put her, force fit a woman into what's really a male character, try to take that and put that in, and you're writing that from a female specific or female centric perspective, of course she's a Mary Sue, because she's a woman. Women are, men must become. Part of men's respectability, part of men's dominance hierarchies, part of men, well, actually all of men's competency comes from earning it, from their burden of performance. They have to get to a point where they become respectable, where they become competent, where they can become a Jedi fucking master. For women, they don't understand that. They don't get that. They don't understand that, or they put this way, they don't care about the process. They only care about the result, where they're at. You want to know why women are focused on equality of outcome right now? Because that's the female experience. Because they just are. Men must become. That's why we say, okay, well, we all want equality of opportunity. That's a male-centric idea, is having, equal access for all, right? We're all born equal, and then from what you do from there is up to your house. Women say, no. We want equality of outcome. We want equality to be whatever it is we want. We want to be able to come out of the box, be a Mary Sue, and our perfect career is waiting for us. Our perfect role, our perfect hero's journey there is no journey. It's just here we are. Let's solve problems now because I'm a hero. I didn't have to do anything. There's no backstory as to, like, literally in the case of Rey, there's no backstory other than whatever we're going to tell you at the last movie. But Conk is right. There is no hero's journey, and it's because it's written from a female-centric perspective. When George Lucas is writing that, he's going back to myth and he's looking at archetypes. It's very Jungian, I know, but the reason why you have that, and the reason why there's the old man who's the master, Yoda or Obi-Wan, whoever, builds that guy up, builds that kid up from a volatile, maybe self-destructive, naive, chump, to being the Jedi master who can kick his dad's ass, which is another part of the hero's journey, or a masculine experience, is slay the overbearing father. That's an archetype.
And he literally does that in the original series. He uses those same terms. Oh, Luke, you're not thinking clearly. You're immature. You're impulsive. He has to earn those qualities along the journey.
Exactly. Practical stoic. I see your comment. I'm going to get to that later once we're done with today's topic, dude. Let's see. Unless you actually. No. Okay. So yeah, and that pisses off a lot of people. And I've written about that. I have an essay called Storytellers, where I wrote that right after the first the first of the new Star Wars movies. And again, you have this generation going back to a successful franchise and trying to rejigger it so that it works in would have been 2010, 2011, whenever it came out, 2015. And why do they keep going back? Because they don't know how to write those characters anymore. And in fact, if they were to write those characters, even this millennial fan base would reject it, or at least that's what they think would. Did you ever see Solo?
Yes,
The
it did. Yeah.
Han Solo. I liked that movie. I'm not ashamed to say it. I actually liked that movie because it had a beginning, a middle, and an end. It actually had some resolution at it, and I thought it was at the end of it, and I thought it was a very good movie.
Mhm.
Yes, I don't think that if you're a writer, take my advice. Write those characters, but also don't feel like you have to explain everything. Just things just are. Like if you go and you back and you look at like the first Star Wars movie, and you look at all the characters and everything that's going on, it just is.
Yeah.
You know, why is Han Solo's name Han Solo? Well, we have to explain that. No, it's just his fucking name. It's okay. Leave it alone. You know,
Like
no, he's alone, so he's Solo.
the prequel
Come on, man.
Force was like, they're
Mhm.
creatures, inside of them, and that's
Mhm.
the Force within
Yeah.
you. You don't need to know that.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody, I was telling you this off air, is somebody sent me a tweet and they said, name a movie that you have seen more than 5 times and answer it with a GIF. And so you had to come up with whatever the movie is. Everybody said Aliens, right? Or everybody said Star Wars. Those are the easy ones. Everybody's seen those more than once. I put LA Confidential on there. And I was telling you this before, it reminded me that I've watched this movie at least 5 times, and looking at some of the quotes and everything and looking at the characters, even a movie like that I really enjoy, I can't go back and watch it without my red pill lens, without looking. Oh, another thing, when I came up with the idea or the name, the red pill lens, it came after me watching It's a Wonderful Life. Have you ever seen It's a Wonderful? It's the Christmas movie. It's one of my Christmas traditions. I don't know about you guys.
Yep.
And if you look at the way the interactions of like George Bailey and Mary eventually becomes Mary Bailey, and like a married couple, the generational differences, the way that, and it's not so much like, it's easy to say, well, they talk different. Well, okay, but it's also, there was different interactions between people in this movie. And yes, I realize it's a work of fiction. I got it. But it was a work of fiction that was written back in like 1939 or made out. It came out in the 50s. So, but the story itself was from like the late 20s all the way up to, I think, like the mid 40s or something like that. Because World War II was in it. And so therefore, it was the late 20s into the 40s, I think. I'm trying to remember, but the intersexual dynamics between men and women completely different. And so I'm looking at this and I'm going, you could not make this movie today because people would lose their shit. You would have to make George Bailey, the lesbian, the masculine lesbian of the couple, and that right there is one thing. But it's like, even if you had them all the same sex and you had them all the same characters, Mary would end up, saving George Bailey from himself. It wouldn't be the angel. It would be Mary or somebody coming along and solving his problems for him. It's something to look at. Hacker Boy says, yeah, I'm kind of digging on the Mandalorian. Not going to lie. Here's the thing about the Mandalorian that I don't like is it seems to me a little bit cheap. And I know people dig on it because it's the Star Wars fanboys love it to death. And hey, I get it. I like it too. I like the Baby Yoda. I think anything that was it Kevin Feige, not Feige. Is that who it is? Who's the guy?
I think it's Feige.
Is he the guy that's
Favreau, right?
Favreau. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Kevin Favreau. Feige was the other guy that was on. John Favreau is the one who's right, and I think he's doing a good job with it. And he's, it's fun. You don't have to overthink it. It's just fun. It's a fun thing, but it's got a lot of wokeness in it too. To me, I was joking with my wife because I used to watch this series too. To me, it's kind of like an ABC kind of action series. It's kind of like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with the Star Wars skin on it. Because that's really it's like the same kind of stories and the same kind of characters. Really, it's just they just put a Star Wars skin on top of that. I'm hoping they do something good with don't tell them this. That's not true. Baby Yoda does not die. Oh man. So okay, so we've been talking about pop culture. We've been talking about stuff. There's when now maybe you have an example. I'll give you one example before you come up with it. We'll play a game here. You come up with another example. When I am talking with people who don't know who I am, they don't know that I'm don't you know who I am? They don't know that I'm Rollo Tomassi. They don't know that what I write. Sometimes even in my own family. I'll listen to conversations, or I'll be in a movie and I can listen to people behind me, or listen to people like talking on the phone. Sorry, I'm a student of human behavior, so I do listen to this. If I, fair warning, if I see you across the restaurant and I happen to catch your conversations, I might use it in an essay. So, I'll listen to conversations, and then I will also filter those conversations like real people through my red pill lens. I will filter my understanding. I still want to do an episode about this. I'll filter my understanding of my family relationships through a red pill lens. Like and this is really tough for people. And this is another aspect of the red pill lens that I think people have a really tough time with. First of all, who they used to be, very tough. What they used to enjoy, very kind of hard. We can laugh at it, that at least. But like who their parents really are, now that they understand women's innate evolved nature a little bit better, suddenly mom isn't the same mom that you knew, that you would still very much like to know, or dad. Maybe dad's not the rat bastard that mom made him out to be before they got divorced, and he actually made some decisions that were based on stuff that you know from the red pill. Maybe he suddenly goes from being a bastard to being a guy that you might have something in common with. Those things, those revelations are really hard, and the problem is like I said, once you see the red pill, once you see the matrix, once you have the red pill awareness, you can't go back, man. And so you apply it to everything else. So have you heard any conversations, like some real life stuff that
Yeah. Not to piggyback, but I will piggyback off of what you said in terms of just like family conversations. And I have seen that, and I'm not going to dox anybody, but, we're talking, intimate family members where I see the relationships, whether it's husband, wife, or even, siblings. Okay. And listening and seeing how a conversation plays out. And it's depressing, and I want to, in some of those cases, I want to be like, oh, hey, read this book, like I came across the, but like you said, I got to have some restraint, because they may, they're probably not going to understand where I'm coming from. So I would have to say it's the understanding and the negotiating within myself that I am seeing this play out in my immediate family.
Yeah. And that can be tough, particularly when your parents, or maybe your brother and his wife, or whoever, are kind of struggling. And I don't mind mentioning this. I guess this is my show, so I can mention this. My father, I guess he would be my father-in-law, on my wife's mother's side, like her husband, he's gone now. He passed away back in 2017. And there was a time when he was a consummate blue pill guy. He was always struggling to find some way to keep her happy, right? And really, by keeping her happy, was the reason he wanted to do that was because he lived in a sexless marriage with my mother-in-law and wanted to find whatever the magic pill was to get her to come around, to be affectionate to him, to love on him. So usually, because he was still stuck in that blue pill way of thinking, it was, what do I need to buy her? We need to change locations, right? She's not happy living here. We're going to go live somewhere else. And so it was moving from place to place to place. When I started writing like full on for my blog and stuff, I tried to have an intervention with him. Honest to God, I sat down, I said, you know what? I said, you really need to control the frame. You need to bring it back. You need to reel this back in. You need to be the guy who she has some respect for, the guy that she fell in love with back 20 years ago, right? You have to be that guy because you sort of have backslid to something that she doesn't have any respect for. This is I'm telling you this from my own personal experience, but like, this is a common story that I get from older men, like the guy who was 70, same story, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of guys go to their grave doing this, trying to find the magic formula to get that bitch to come around, right? To get her to want to love on him, to find some way. And it locks in to this old school understanding of burden of performance. Well, I'm not performing enough. I'm not manning up enough. I haven't bought her enough stuff. I haven't, she's not living in a big enough house. Okay, she wants a little dog. Let's go buy her two. She wants, a jet ski. Let's get her that. She wants, those kinds of things, all these things to try to, but that's that guy trying to rationalize that and trying to find, a rational, reasonable reason for that. But when I come up and I say, and I start laying out some red pill, wisdom on a guy who is probably, for 40 years my senior, they don't want to hear it, right? Because that's too much for them. They're like, no. First of all, I think. Tell me if you think this too. I think that a lot of guys, when they encounter red pill awareness, they turn off from it because they see what's coming down the road. Like they go, no, I can't start thinking like that, because if I do, all that means that everything I've done up to now is worthless. And it's almost as if, like, if you tell them about red pill awareness, that they will cut you. No, don't tell me anymore. That's, yeah, they fingers in the ears. No, I'm not listening. That the reason that they do that is because they understand that if what you say is so radical to them, it will zero them out. It will zero them out up here. Not because of a woman or anything like that. It will zero them out, because what happens is, if what you say is true, then everything they've done up to the point where they're at right now is worthless.
Yep.
It's pointless. It's like telling a parent you raised your kid wrong.
Yeah.
You lived your life wrong. I don't know if you know anybody like that, but
in my regular job, I come across it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Stories that people share, and I build a lot of my content on those stories that I get, and I interact with people, and it's the same thing. Again, I just said it. It's the willful ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot afford, those people, those individuals cannot afford to have that even be remotely true.
Mm-hmm.
Because just like you said, the 20 or 30 years, the mortgage they did,
Mm-hmm.
you said it, the cats, the dogs, the all that investment, if that blows up, they're sunk. And that's when, to bring it around to the divorcees, that's why, that they go nuclear when that happens, because it is literally, in their minds, the end of their world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Chris, I know I'm just joking with you right there. He says he's looking for a soulmate. Well, it's fun. The reason I put that on there is because a lot of guys still cling to that.
Oh, yeah.
They need to cling to that. Their existence depends on there actually being a soulmate, because all of the decisions that they made, that idealism that they had maybe when they were younger, and we are all far more idealistic when we're younger than we are now. I don't necessarily think idealism is a bad thing. I think it can be a very good thing. It can inspire creativity and innovation and everything, but it can also be the worst liability that guys have. So when I think a lot of people think that when I say idealism, I'm trying to like come down on, oh, you're this pie in the sky idealist. No, I think it can be a good thing too. It's just how you use it. And that's the problem, is like guys will use that idealism, and then that idealism becomes a liability for them due to the choices that they made up to that point. So let's see, what else do I got here? Anybody else? No. So I mean, when I listen to conversations when guys like one of the first things that I did when I was back in back in 2003 2004, like when my brother-in-law committed suicide, and when I was doing peer counseling for I used to do it for guys who are much older than I am, like guys in their 60s, and I was like 32 33 when I was talking to these guys, and they all had that same thing, or they would always have like the common, again, pattern recognition. It was all these commonalities amongst guys that I was listening to, and they would all use the same demeanor. They always use this, in some cases, even the same words. I'm sure you've had guys do this. They'll come up to you, and like, even if you don't know that person and you're at like a family, maybe you're at a family gathering or you're at a work gathering or something like that. And it's usually older guys that do this, and they'll like kind of rib you, and they'll go, "Oh, women, I guess we'll never understand them." you know. And when I hear that, it just goes up my neck, because that right there, when I listen to certain jingoisms, again, when I listen to those kind of common tropes, it leads me, it tells me what I need to know about that one guy and where they're at, and whether or not I can actually talk to that guy on a level where he needs to hear it and what he needs. And I think one of the more frustrating aspects of the red pill lens is when guys, and Conk will probably agree with me on this, when you get to that point and you sort of, the blinders are taken off of your eyes and you're unplugged from the matrix, and you see, I'm not saying it's not like some religious epiphany or some kind of conversion or something like that. I'm just saying you just see things in a different way. Once you do that, like for most guys, if they can sort of get past the abyss part where they kind of like lose the nihilism and they see the opportunities that are there for them in the red pill, that's when they get the red pill lens, and they want to save their friends. They want to be red pill evangelists, is what I call them. And they want to tell their friends, and particularly if it's somebody that they're related to. If it's your brother and he's going to marry some chick that he in no way should be marrying, and you see it because you understand where his head is at, because your head used to be there too. Mm-hmm. It can be very frustrating, because those guys are going to resist you. They're going to fight you. In fact, sometimes like really fight you, because they think, "Oh, I don't believe what you believe about women. You're a chauvinist," and they don't understand. Like when people call me a chauvinist, or they call me a misogynist, I know where they're at. I know where their head is at. That's what they've been taught that they're supposed to say. But it's frustrating for guys, because you really want that guy to get it. You really want it. You're doing it because you want to save their lives. You want to really help them out. And they don't realize that you're trying to do that. But then, so bear with me here. There's those guys who are the evangelists, and then they do what I just said I did. Like, I'll listen to conversations, or I'll see things going on, or I'll see something like on the TV, or I'll listen to a song, or I'll see something going on maybe on Twitter or whatever else. And I see, like, I've seen guys on Twitter who are blue check mark guys who are verified Twitter accounts, and they'll say, "I'm never getting into another relationship ever again." And these guys have like 2 million followers, right? Or they're like somebody who is like, I talked to what was it, Andrew Hales, about this stuff too. Like, he has 2 million followers, right? And so I'm like, when he gets into a relationship or he is breaking up, I want to go, and I've done this. Like, I wanted to do this with Elon Musk, right? I wanted to say, "Elon, I know you're breaking up, and I know you're very blue pill, but here, read my book. Hopefully this will change your life." I want to do that. I know damn well they're going to resist, but you still have that want and that desire. And I think that's a really frustrating aspect of the red pill lens, is listening to all that, sort of being sensitive to this stuff.
Yeah, I know that for me, that's definitely the case.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I have friends, I have relatives, and some of them are going through some heavy duty stuff. Mm-hmm. And I know that material like your book can really help them out, or I could impart some knowledge to them, and it'll just fall on deaf ears.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, how can you get my book? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's go and use this brand new banner that I created. There, that's how you get my book. I love StreamYard. StreamYard actually they'll let you do green screen now too, which is great. I gotta figure out how to do some sort of green screen stuff with myself. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to get onto today before we move on to the end phase here, because we got about 30 minutes left. So I wanted to discuss how is like the red pill lens or being a red pill aware, how is that, and you can answer this, like how is that different than having like personal bias? Like how, like most people will say, well, the only I had Dr. Smith tell me this, it's like the reason you see these things, the reason you believe in hypergamy, or you see, I don't think it's a article of faith, but the reason why you see hypergamy everywhere is because you have this red pill lens, and that's your bias. So you're going to filter that through. Like if there's a difficulty between a couple, first thing I'm going to think of is, well, and I understand why I was very frustrated like this, because a lot of sort of defeatist, isolationist MGTOWs will use hypergamy as their rationalization for not doing anything, for not caring, for not. I don't want to have anything to do with women, because if I do, then I'll get wrapped up emotionally. Maybe in some cases they're right. Maybe I'll get wrapped up emotionally, and as soon as the next hot Chad comes by, she'll ditch me and she'll go after him. So I'd rather not waste my time, and I'm going to just go MGTOW monk mode and live happily ever after. And that to me right there is, I mean, the guy still has a red pill lens, but he's using it in a way that is, I think, self-defeating. So there needs to be, I think that there needs to be sort of and you can't expect this from everybody, but there needs to be a defining line. There needs to be a distinction between seeing, like watching Friends and going, boy, look at all this blue pill stuff that's going on here. And then saying, well, I have this red pill lens, and therefore I'm not going to even bother trying to get with a woman. I'm not going to try to form a family. I'm just going to, jerk off and to porn and, eat pizza and get high all the time.
Well, I think the correlation has to be number one, and you talk about it with mental point of origin. You have to be focused and striving for the betterment of yourself. Okay. And the red lens is only there to clarify what you're looking at on your journey. Okay. It is not an excuse, as you say, with the MGTOWs to, oh, well, I'm going to get my ball and go home. I'm not going to bother with these girls. It's not going to work out. It's not meant to do that. It's meant to filter out so that you can make better choices in terms of the women that you're getting involved with. Now, that could just be flings, or that could be something that you would really want to work on for a long-term relationship. That's what it's the lens is there as a practice to evaluate and analyze the choices you can make as you go along. And that goes, again, for relationships, for investing your money, for just living your life. That's how I draw that line. For me, the lens is to filter out and give you the analysis to make better choices.
Yeah, I that was actually one of the things that I told Dr. Smith on Monday too. Aaron Auda, I think that's how you pronounce your name, says, having a red pill lens makes me realize the nature of a woman, and I don't judge them for that. I just enjoy spinning plates and being my metal point of, I'm my metal point of origin.
Megadeth.
Yes. There you go. I like that. That was a good comment. Yeah. I 100% agree. I think that that's one of the reasons why I will always fight anybody who wants to tell me that the red pill is an ideology, because if the minute it becomes an ideology is when it becomes worthless, because you will pair that ideology with whatever you think it aligns with. It is a tool set. It is a tool for you to use. And sometimes we're all going to use it differently, right? I'm going to build my life differently with this tool set than you are or anybody else is going to. But you have to look at it from the perspective that it is a tool set and it's something to be constructive with. The other thing is that the red pill exists not so that you will hate women.
Right.
It is so that you won't hate them for what they can't be to you. And that's a really, sometimes that's a tough distinction for people, because especially if you're burned, and especially if you're looking for answers, like Ryan would say this, it's an answer looking for a problem.
Right.
And so you have, like, and of course everybody uses the same damn analogy. I've used it myself. It's like, if all you have is a hammer, then all of your problems start to look like nails. Okay. But the thing is that you have more than a hammer. That's what the red pill is. It's not just one size fit. Red pill's not one size fits all. You have to use it according to what, where you are, who you are, how old you are, who is a woman that you're with, or who is your family. Remember, red pill's not just about, getting laid. It's not just about pickup artistry. It's also about understanding intersexual dynamics. Yes, can you use it to get laid? Sure, you can. I hope you do. But that's not just for PUA. It's for living a better life. Yeah. Like I said, it's not so that you will hate women. And I think that's what a lot of people worry about. The other thing I hear all the time, and I wrote about this in my first book called The Bitter Taste of the Red Pill, is there's a lot of people who, like, once you get to a certain point, a lot of the truths, like when I run into the most resistance that I run into is not from women, it's from guys. And I think that the reason for that is that they don't want to have to go back and say, oh my gosh, I made these decisions based on blue pill, understanding. A lot of the toughest guy to unplug from the matrix, the toughest guy to even talk about red pill awareness with, is the guy who believes in relational equity. Mm-hmm. The guy who has built up his life around having a good marriage, or what he thinks is a good marriage. And then, like, I'll get this all the time. Guys will say, well, and these were the older guys. I can't believe my wife left me, 45 years old. I can't believe my wife left me for this guy or whatever. I used to, do homework with the kids. I went to soccer practice. I went to all the recitals. I went to the school play. I did the homework. I did everything. I tried to keep it fresh. We had date nights. We did, like, and then they'll rattle off all of these things that they believe that they should have some sort of equity in. And that should be in some way proof against their wife or maybe their girlfriend leaving them for somebody else. Right. And I think, so there's those guys. And this is kind of like the two sides of this. I get the guy who's really firmly believes in that and doesn't want to believe, and doesn't want to hear, I shouldn't say believe, doesn't want to hear about red pill truths, doesn't want to hear about hypergamy, doesn't want to hear about alpha widows, doesn't want to hear about the innate nature of women's innate natures, doesn't want to hear about those things, because if what I say is true, then it invalidates, or he thinks it invalidates, all of what he's done up to this point, and that what he has done should be insurance, like an insurance policy. Like, I did all this great shit, you should appreciate it. That's another thing, is like they want to believe that women will appreciate all of the sacrifices they've made for that woman. But then if I relate all of this to them, of course they're going to reject that, because to accept that is to reject all of the things that have built them up to being what they are right now. And they don't want to let go of that. It's really tough, and it's almost impossible for them to let go of that, unless they get into that traumatic phase, like we were talking about at the beginning of the show. So they can do that. But yeah. So you've got those guys, the guys who believe in the relational equity. And then you get the guys who also had that relational equity, or believe that they should have it, but they go the opposite way. And so instead of resisting the red pill, they swallow it whole, and they go, oh my God, I can't believe I was so stupid. I can't believe I thought this. Now I know that women are actually evil. Now I know that all the stuff that I was doing before, that I thought was going to be an insurance, is all out the window. Women are really evil, 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 evil. And so they'll go the opposite side. So they'll go nihilist on me. And then they'll say, so that now they're going to, instead of resisting the red pill because they want to be, their existence depends on their blue pill, understanding, they go the opposite way. And they go, okay, well, if women are really like that, and they have, Rollo said they can't really love you, which is bullshit, but they approach love differently, but they'll interpret it through this kind of filter of what they want to hear. And they'll think that, well, women can't love me, or women can't actually love men. They can't really appreciate men. And look, I know firsthand, because she left me even after doing all the great things that I did. So women are evil. Women are bad. I hate women because I was on the sharp end of hypergamy. I was on the sharp end of this really bad deal. I believe in I got red pilled. And I wanted to say that too here is I don't think that the red pill should ever be used as a verb.
Yeah,
no, it should never be used as a verb. And I hate it when people say, I got red pilled, I'm going to red pill you. Like it's you got to learn how to be, you need to learn the martial art of red pill, or you need to get your red pill time, trials up, like there's some red pill is a tool set. It's not like you can unplug. Sure, you can become more red pill aware, but it's not like boy, I wish it was. I really wish it was a process. And I know a lot of people like to think that it is, because a lot of people make a lot of money off of red pilling people.
Yeah.
And that goes, again, I don't want to talk about the bastardization of the brand of red pill, but then, so you've got the guy who doesn't want to accept it because of his relations equity. And then you get the guy who accepts it so much that he loses his shit over it, maybe gets suicidal, maybe gets nihilistic over it. And so what's in between, like you were saying before, is you have to use it. You can't use it after the fact. You have to use it before the fact. It has to be something that's preventive medicine, right? It has to be something that heads off, catastrophe before you get to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, I got a few. Let's answer a few of these off topics here. I will start with Nova. He had a $10 super chat. He said, husband and wife had 2 kids together. He still spins plates, behind his wife's back, so he's cheating on the wife. Then he took co-business money and ran away with a new woman. She's left to raise 2 kids alone. Is he red pill? Why did he that? Well, unless I've got the guy sitting here in front of me, I can't give you a definitive answer. I don't know. I don't know why he would do something like that. Is it because he suddenly became red pill, or is it because he was making more money doing this business? Did he make a whole shit ton of money and decided that the wife and kid wasn't for him? This is a stereotypical story, by the way. I don't see this happening quite as often as I think more women will relate this.
There's a lot of one-offs. I see that a lot. They have these stories that are one-offs where the guy nukes, divorces and gets out.
Women initiate 70% plus of divorces, at least in the United States right now. I think it might be something
just to jump off of what you said before. The red lens, red pill. That's not a license to blow things up in your life. That's not the these tools are not there to just be like dynamite and blow everything up. So you got to be careful when you get these stories. There's a lot to them.
Yeah. So just because a guy is a selfish bastard does not necessarily mean that they are red pill. Right? Could still very well be a blue pill guy who's just very self-important and self-centered and has something, maybe he's got narcissistic personality disorder. I don't have enough information to really give you an accurate read on this, but I mean, again, okay, so let's use our red pill lens here. What's going on with this guy? From what I can see, this is, like you said, this is an apex fallacy for most women. Is they want to believe that once the guy gets to a certain socioeconomic level, then he detonates the family and leaves the kids, and she's, it's this stereotypical, oh, he banged his secretary and got the trophy wife and moved on from her, and oh, poor woman. This is this is an old school. Talk about old school stereotypes like what Mrs. Doubtfire and those kinds of things. This is one of those things. for the most part, if you go and you look at the statistics for like divorce statistics, it's usually men who are getting put through the ringer. It's not this is not the other way around. And most women are the ones who are detonating the marriage. And of course, women will hear this and they'll go, well, if men weren't such bastards, then they wouldn't have to. I don't know. From what you're saying here, New Nova, he's spinning plates behind his wife's back. Well, let me clarify some terms here for you. If the guy is married and he's spinning plates, that's not spinning plates. That's cheating on your wife. That's what that is. Spinning plates is when you are dating non-exclusively. If they had some kind of open marriage or they were poly or whatever, then I might say something different. But from all I can glean from your super chat here, no, he's cheating on her. Why does a guy cheat on his wife? Well, because he's not getting something at home. There's something that's not there, right? Did she get fat? Is he in a sexless marriage? Most guys that I have, and you probably encountered this too, is most guys who I do consults for who are in sexless marriages, they don't want to cheat on their wives.
Oh.
In fact, that's the first thing they tell me. They say, I hate this, Rollo, because I really don't want to cheat on her because I love her so much, but I got to get laid. And then the first thing out of their mouths is, do you think I should go see a prostitute? Because then that will solve their problems, and maybe that's something that they want to do. And I tell them this, I said, first of all, you need to reassess your whole relationship from the ground up. And the first part of that is break up with your wife. And I don't mean like go sign divorce papers. I mean, you got to break up with her up here. And if you were broken up, if you were single today, would your wife be somebody that you would actually start a new relationship with? Most of them will say no, but it's not that they want to break up. Then I would say probably 100% of the guys I have counseled didn't want to break up with their wives. They just wanted to have sex with their wives, the wives that they married, that they said till death do us part. They want to do that. But then like, if you go and you talk to like prostitutes, they'll say, the married guys that they're nailing, they're there because they're not getting something at home. So I would ask my red pill lens here. I would say, why is he doing that? What is the motivation? Is he just a bastard? And he just says, you know what? I want more for me. I want to get laid. Did they get married early? Huh? Right. I would suspect that maybe the guys, they probably got married in their, late teens or early 20s. That could be another thing. Guy wants variety. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, maybe I think when we look at this, if you were to take this super chat and you were to put it up on, like, if I put it on my blog or if I put it up someplace public and I said, what do you think's going on in this? I think women would probably read that one way, because remember we were talking about personal bias. They would read it one way, and I think certainly red pill guys would read it another way. Blue pill guys would also, of course, read it similarly to how women would. That he's just a bastard and he fucked up and, he took off with a new chick and left her alone and destitute.
And they have to go to counseling.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, he didn't keep it fresh. Yeah. Again, I don't have enough information, but I would say that there's probably variables in this. Like they got married early.
Yeah.
There's
arts.
Yeah. And here's the thing is, without talking to the guy, I would say, well, why would a guy do that? Why does a guy want to have sex outside of his marriage? It's usually sexual. Usually it's, people say, well, it's appreciation. Well, that appreciation comes in the form of sex for guys. Usually you can only like, what was it? Ron White had this great, do you know who Ron White is?
Yeah. He's,
yep. He's a lot like, Dean Martin, I think. He's got the tumbler of scotch, and he's got a cigar while he's delivering these one-liners. One of the things he said was, he says, he was talking about cheating on his wife, and not that he did, but like what he goes through his head when you gotta live. Ron White is great. He's one of my favorite comedians. But he had this one line that says, I'm a good dog, but you gotta pet me to keep me on the porch. Like that right there, that's dudes, right? Ladies, you wanted the key to a successful relationship? Fuck your husband. Do it, regularly. AFI Kingdom says, peace to Rollo. Modern life. Chris, what up, chat? Thank you for that. Peace to you, my friend, as well. Sleepless in Seattle. What else do we got here? YOLO says, hi. I wonder why. Okay, we talked about that. Okay, I got YOLOs. I got to Conks. Practical Stoic I did not get to just yet. Practical Stoic says, went out with this chick last week. Somewhere along the night, she confessed she was a feminist, banged her easy, then ghosted her. Have a great day, gents. All right. Well, you know what that is? Practical Stoic. That's you using the tool set.
There you go.
Using the tool set to your advantage, right?
Do it this weekend too.
I think a lot of oh man, you know what I didn't say as in when I was talking about that part about how I wrote what's in the first book. It's called The Bitter Taste of the Red Pill. The way I started that essay was a lot of women today accept the idea of the red pill. They do more so now, I think, than ever before, because women have adopted open hypergamy. And it's to the point where the jig is up and they can't hide it anymore. In fact, they proudly, too many, because of the internet, because of this globalized society, they can no longer hide this anymore. So they adopt it and they go, okay, guys, you got us. You're right. Hypergamy is a thing. Alpha widow, all this stuff that Rollo talks about. What is it? Everything in this book is true, but you shouldn't know any of it. But since you do, gentlemen, now it is your moral duty to use this in as ethical a way as possible. So please don't take, now that you know all this stuff, now that you have your red pill aware and you're, the fog has been lifted and you see everything, now it's your moral obligation to use your superpowers for good and not to be an evil supervillain and manipulate women. And the only thing I can say is that's really kind of up to the guy, however you want to do that. Like, do whatever, it's there. I can't stop a guy like Practical Stoic from going and nailing a feminist. Okay, go ahead. Hopefully you wrap the rascal, but go for it. But it's not on me to say, oh, you know what? Here's the keys to the car. Make sure you only drive at 10 miles an hour.
Right.
I can't do that. So it's not an issue of morals, at least as far as the red pill is concerned. You can use it morally. I would hope that you would. I hope you use things pro-socially.
Yeah.
But it's not. I think it's funny because when I wrote that, that was back in like 2009, 2008, I think, and then it ended up in the first book. And I wrote that because so many women were expecting men, even in light of having red pill awareness, they were expecting men to still fall in line, to still, like, even though you have the keys to the castle, sorry, we still want you. It's still your masculine duty to use this ethically. I'm gonna. I got New Nova one more time, but I'm going to answer this one real quick because I got it right here on the screen. It says Giuseppe DeFry. He's been on before. He says, I spoke to many women and I am surprised. Okay. Some women are on board with the red pill. Yes, they are. I was just saying. But they don't want, I think that means want, their rights taken away. Oh, imagine that. I believe women should have their rights. Me too. Yeah. I don't, but they need to be kept accountable and responsible in a new red pill social order. Yes, they do. I think people some people get shocked at this. Like when people tell me, and I know why he's saying this, because a lot of MGTOWs will say the same thing. They will go, okay, well, we need to repeal the 19th. We need to take away women's rights. And I've always said, well, how are you going to do that?
Right.
Tell me how that works. The genie's out of the bottle. How do I push them back out? The toothpaste came out of the tube. How do I put it back in? Right. Not going to happen. Not going to happen, because you know what? It's not going to be not only is it women who will fight you, it's men who will fight you. Particularly blue pill alphas will fight you tooth and nail because they need to defend Milady's honor. You will be fighting. If you want to take women's rights away, you will be fighting not just against the women, but the men. And guess what? You will also be fighting against men's protector instinct. That's not just a socialized thing. It is a mental thing. Like, we evolved as men, our brain architecture evolved a mental firmware that gives us a proclivity, I'm trying to word this right, gives us a proclivity to want to protect women and sometimes children. Right? Because that's what the noble knight does, right?
Even TFM, when I had him on one of my shows.
I didn't know you had him on.
Yeah. I have an episode called Interview with a Monkey. And it's him. It's actually almost 2 hours of him. But he even, at that point, with, with the take your rights away and everything, he walks back from that a little bit. I think he's still about that, but he leaves it open ended because, just like you just said, there's no real practical. Okay, well, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
He leaves it open ended.
I think and that goes back to, like, I think a lot of MGTOW is not just analysis. MGTOW is basically red pill with a practice added to it in the main. I know that there's lots of different. I always say this every fucking show, man.
I know you do.
I'm so fucking sick of this. I understand what MGTOW is. Thank you very much. Okay. How can I not? I get it every fucking show. So, but in the main, okay, I see the analysis is right. It's red pill, but MGTOW is just red pill with here's what you do at the end of it. And here's what you do is usually don't talk to them, don't do anything, go monk mode, never talk to them, never do anything with them, never entertain a woman, don't use her as your measurement for your self-esteem or your life or whatever it is. Great. Mental point of origin right there. All of that shit is red pill, right? But take away their rights, do this, put them back to the Stone Age again, put them back in the kitchen. We need patriarchy once again. A beneficent patriarchy. I think patriarchy would be a great thing, but you're not going to take women's rights away, and you're not going to initiate that by, by putting them back, because you're not going to put them back in the kitchen, because men will fight you for that. Protector instinct men will fight you on that. So what do? Okay, I don't have a problem with women having the right to vote. I don't have a problem. Say, well, they'll always vote in their own interests. Yeah, they probably will. Okay. So what are you going to do about it? How are we going to change society so that women will vote not just in their own interest, but in the common good, in the common interest? How do you educate them? Well, you can't, because they're just ignorant and blah, blah, blah. I don't accept that. I think that you could, first of all, I think women are emotional, and then they have reason. They go from instinct to emotion to a reason. It's that reason part right there. It's that it's appealing to that reason part. Like I said, you should never do. Don't appeal to that reason, but use your red pill tool set to manipulate that, or to influence that, to like, people will say this, like, when I say, I'll give you a good example. When I talk about genuine desire cannot be negotiated, right? Usually the first thing that pops into somebody's mind is, well, you don't want to go to marriage counseling because that's negotiating desire, or all this bullshit about open communication solves all problems. Like, you have a healthy relationship if you have open communication. Okay, bullshit, because it's about the desire. It's about the innate, natural, genuine desire. If a woman has no desire to please you, has no respect for you, has no desire to do anything for you, all the negotiation in the world isn't going to mean jack shit. Okay, but yet that's the first thing most guys will do, because it makes sense, right? We're deductive problem solvers. Well, if I negotiate with her and I come to terms, then maybe she'll fuck me. That does not work like that. But you can do things yourself that will prompt a woman to genuine desire with you.
Right.
Track where I'm at with this is that they're like, hey guys, hey black pill, nihilistic guys, or looks maxers, right? What's going to get the girl? What's going to improve your life the most? Well, look better. Okay, well, guess what you've just done? You've just told me how to entice a woman to come to your way of thinking, to be more open to what your point of view is. Like, what was it? Donovan Sharp has talked about this before, is that women imprint on the strongest male that they're with. If there's in the absence of that strong male, they're going to find somebody else around there, or they're going to think that, that they're going to think for themselves. But like what Donovan was saying is, like, women don't necessarily believe in God. They believe in the God of the man who is the strongest male that is in their sort of sphere. Same thing with, like we were saying before, is like women don't, like, when women start saying that they like, your kind of music, or they like the foods that you like, or they start rooting for your sports team, that's when women don't have any, that give a rat's ass about the 49ers. They know that you love it, so that they will love it too. So there's that imprint. That's what I'm talking about right here. So it's not just, I'm not saying, oh, you need to appeal to reason. I'm saying that there are things that you can do that can influence the way that that woman thinks. And usually it's because you're strong, dominant, competent, conventionally masculine male that she wants to be with, she wants to please in spite of her own interests, or what she's told by feminism and everything else should be her own interests.
Right.
So it's not an appeal to reason, it's an appeal to being to knowing enough about women's innate nature to use it for your best advantage. So there's that aspect. And this frustrates most MGTOWs and certainly most black pill guys and most, whatever it looks like. It frustrates them because it's too much work. They can't figure it out. Right? They've never been good at it, so why bother? Okay, great. Why bother? Great. Go fuck your dolls. Go, do whatever.
Well, you see, they use that to negotiate and verify the other thing they want to do. Oh, well, it's too much. So, I'd rather be over here with this doll. So I'm going to do that.
Too much work. I've never been good at it, and I don't care anymore. You know what? I think that is a 100% valid reason for you going mode and doing your own thing. Have a good life. But don't tell me we got to go. Don't wave your flag about, oh, we need to repeal the 19th. We do need to limit we need to limit women to the same standard of justice as men, the same standard of consequences, the same standard of, you made choices. These are the results. You live with those fucking results, and you don't blame them on women, and you don't blame them on men, and you don't expect men to pay your rent. And I mean that in the broadest sense, right? So you do something, you say, okay, well, I've decided to go through my party years, have a great time. And then at the 0 hour, I want to jump off the cock carousel, or I want to cash out of the party before the lights go out. So I'm going to find a good beta and waiting. Guess what? If that guy's not there, if you can't do that, don't say, oh, men are infantile, or men have weak, fragile egos, or whatever. Don't tell me that shit, because you made a choice and the rent is due. Don't expect, your beta to pay that rent. You had 2 kids out of wedlock, and you're a single mom, and you're having a really tough time finding a new husband or somebody to, finish out your life, optimize hypergamy with. You can't find that. Guess what? Those are the results of the choices that you made. And they were your choices, because women are the ones who decide whether a baby lives or a baby dies. And they'll say, well, what about the man? The man is the one, if he kept his dick in his pants, then everything will be fine. Okay, once the sperm leaves my body, you have 100% control. So if there's a result of me, impregnating you, is you decide to have those kids, that was your choice. It wasn't my choice, because that's the way the rules work. And that's what we need to do. We need to make a standard of justice that is across the board equal for everyone, and that women are held to that standard. Because I'll guarantee you, I keep seeing these t-shirts, and I think it was Hotep Jesus sent me a picture of this, where it's like, there's black women who are pro-life black women, and they're saying, 50% of black babies are aborted. Okay, you can say, well, the guys impregnated them, yeah, but that 50% of those mothers are the ones that decided whether those babies lived or died.
My thing is, like, it's got to stop being a slogan that looks good on a shirt, and be there, oh, my body, my choice. Yeah, so it is. It really is your body, your choice. Own it.
And look at the results of your choices. You are, and you know what? Don't ask men to pay for your choices. I think that should be a rule, to be honest with you. I think that if a man is not interested in raising a children that the woman wants to have, you would see a rapid decline in abortion. You would see a rapid decline or you would see an increase in women being a little more cautious with who it is that they choose to get after it with. I think another thing that you're going to see, and I've said this before, I think that once we get to a reliable male contraceptive that is like a hormone, like a chemical, like a drug, not a condom, obviously that's semi-reliable, but once we get to that point and men have unilateral control over the reproductive process, you'll see women in the streets marching against that, to limit men from getting that. Because at that point, it will be the guys who are looking out for, it'll be the MGTOWs, right? It'll be the guys who are looking out for themselves who say, no, I'm not going to give you a baby. You've got to come and play on my game now. I'm the one that's, I don't necessarily think it will make men the primary sexual selectors in society, but it will certainly balance it away from women being the primary sexual selectors right now. And I think that you will see feminism just up in arms because men will have, and it's the same thing. Like when we put out I know people are going to say it's something else, and I know what the something else is, but they'll say that like when we produced hormonal birth control for women back in the 60s, that we did not know what the overall global societal impact of that decision would be, because we have essentially given women a unilateral control over the human reproductive process. So if a woman wants to go off the pill and have your kid, like, without telling you, sorry, whatever. It's all in the interest of the child. It's all on her choice if a woman wants to do that. I've always said this, is that there's no such thing as an accidental pregnancy. Pregnancy is all, if it goes to term and she doesn't abort it, it wasn't an accident. She wanted to have the baby. It didn't just pop out of her one day.
Right.
There's a thought process that goes along with that. So I just to put a period on the end of this. I'm all for women being able to make their choices and do whatever the hell that they want to. I just simply think that they need to be held to a common standard. If a female school teacher decides that she wants to rape her underage students, male students, she goes to jail for the same amount of time as we would, for a man. She would have to be a sex offender as well. We don't do that now. It's very well studied that women get far more lenient, punishments and jail time and sentencing for the same crimes that men would. And we throw the book at men, we won't do it at women. In fact, they're saying that there needs to be a whole different set of justice or different standard of justice for women. There already is, but now we want to codify it. We want to make it really happen. And that's what I have a problem with. You want to fight women's rights. You want to take women's rights away. Don't do that. Fight for holding women accountable for the same consequences and the same result. Hold them accountable for the rent that a man would have to pay as well. That's where you need to start, not repeal the 19th. So there is that, which is, I think, is what he was saying before. YOLO says, hi, I wonder why many companies has started to use color. Okay, we already talked about that. That one's a dead one. Draptoman says, women aren't the enemy, the social system is. Okay, thanks. Morpheus mentality is this one right here. Yeah, I actually caught up. Okay, says a red pill lens allows us to finally enjoy women because you finally get their behavior. Yeah, you know where to put your energy and you stop bad experiences before they even begin. That's what I was trying to maybe unsuccessfully get across to Dr. Sean Smith. I think there's two ways to really, we were talking about hypergamy, but there's two ways to kind of look at the red pill. One of them is kind of like proactive, like heading off disaster before it happened, you before the train wreck, heading off disaster and being, if you're a guy that's already in control of your life and more or less, and let's just say you're directing the story of your life, then yes, the red pill can definitely do exactly what you're saying here. And there's the guys who are retroactively using it. Those are the guys who are awakened while married. Yeah. So that's a good one. And let's see. Renegade Show. That's this one. Also, 9 days to Valentine's Day. Oh, it is, isn't it? That's a red pill mistake for you, right? The female pre-Valentine's rut is in full swing. Yeah. I usually I think I'm going to write a new one, but I usually put out I repost my standard Valentine's Day essay, but I think it's time to write a new one. guys, if you are if you're proactive, if you're not in a relationship, you have to remember that Valentine's Day is the #1 day to capitalize on your red pill knowledge and to use your pickup artist skills to your best advantage. Because remember, women today are not finding the long-term provider, the long-term guy that they want to get with, much less the short-term guy that they want to get with. So use Valentine's Day and and I will tell you to do this ruthlessly. Use this occasion to really, it's almost like if you're on game, if you're learning game, Valentine's Day is almost game on easy mode. So go out there and do your, what day is, I'm going to look at what's my
Like Thursday?
Is it a Thursday? It is, no, it's a Friday. Holy crap. You guys are in luck. Oh yeah, it's a leap year. Oh man. Yeah. On a Friday, a Valentine's Day on a Friday, you got no excuse not to be out there hitting it.
You got a whole weekend, guys.
You got a whole weekend. Yes. Yeah, I know. Just don't get desperate. That's all. I know sometimes that's too much to ask, because don't get desperate. And this was the last one. Dana Vita says, Rollo, will you ever do a show about your experience with disrespectful BPD women and why you decided to leave? Yeah, I tell you what, you know what? Here, I got the great big book of everything down. I will write that down here right now. I kind of did that with, I'm writing it right here. Do the BPD show. I kind of talked a little bit about BPD with Andrew Tate. All right. So noted, Dana Vita. Thank you very much for that.
Zero, you did that too a while back.
Yeah, we did. I remember we did one of those. So, yeah, Hector, where's Hector? There you go. Hectoria says, Rollo, keep the good work up. Help me tremendously. Thank you. I'm glad to hear you say that. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do. Also, subscribe to Chris Von Erich's channel. He's an up and coming dude. And okay, so before we got a break now, but please tell your friends about this show. I've seen real growth in just the last month for this show, and I mean that by views, and I mean that by well, revenue's okay, pretty good. Thank you very much. But views and subs are going up right now. I'm at 33, almost 34,000, which is nice. Thank you for that. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do. Please have your friends do. You got no excuse. I mean, come on, I'm on like all the time now. I don't have a I'm not Donovan Sharp. I'm not going to do it every day, but I will probably do it every other day. I'm starting to do it a lot, be on here a lot more. I'm almost done with the studio downstairs, so I'm going to change venues very soon. And let's see, I will be doing, here's the other announcement that I got to make is I will no longer be doing the, at least in the foreseeable future, I will no longer be doing the Friday morning shows with Pat Campbell. And he will, in the foreseeable future, will not be a part of the Sunday shows with me anymore for Red Pill 101. This is sort of his choice. It's nothing between us. It's just just where he's at in his head. And he had a near-death experience. He had 3 tumors removed from his brain. He's got a titanium plate in his brain. He is, concentration is hard. He's exhausted, pain meds, all that other stuff. So it's going to take some time for him to sort of recover from this. This is like a real life injury. So for the foreseeable future, I'm not saying that he won't come on or we won't talk again, because he and I we talk on the phone, we talk on our DMs. We're still very much very good friends. So just don't, it's not a personal thing. It's just a professional thing. He's doing the same thing with his show as well. He's on there for like maybe 2 hours until he can't do it anymore. And then he goes to his best of, or he has his producer or the station manager, Shelby, comes in and takes over for him. That's in Tulsa. I know maybe some of you care, maybe you don't. I do. And I really love Pat like a brother. So I just thought I'd let you guys know what was going on about that. We talked about this already. Are you worried about confirmation bias with the red pill lens? Yes. Go back and rewind the tape. So that's it. That's tomorrow I will be on with Troy Francis on his show. So if you want to see me crack it down, I will be up at 8 o'clock to actually be up earlier than that. But it starts at 8 Pacific. It'll be 11 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to talk about the red pill and game. And of course, if you know anything about Troy, I guess we could call him a PUA. I don't think he would deny he's a PUA. He's a game enthusiast, let's just say. So I'll be doing probably about a 90-minute show with Troy tomorrow. And last but not least, I will be doing Rule Zero, of course, on Saturdays and, of course, Sundays. Always watch this channel. Sundays at 4:30, I'll be doing my show here. Be sure to check out Chris's show on YouTube.
Thursdays at 9.
Thursdays at 9 o'clock Eastern
Yeah.
time, so 6 o'clock Pacific. And yes, we are going to be officially doing an event. It will be in April. I'm not going to give you the dates just yet, the exact dates. I am going to say this, though. I'm going to open up the registration to, if you want to be a part of it. We're just calling it a meetup right now. We're going to call it Rule Zero Live at this stage. You'll start seeing some a little bit of branding for it and some things that I'm doing. Modern Life Dating, John will be there. Ryan will be there. I will be there. And Rich will be there. And we'll let you know where and when we're good and ready. Actually, once we've locked down the venue, you will very much want to be at this venue. We don't do, well, I don't do shit. I don't do shitty events. If I'm going to do an event, I just show up. So, anyways, that's coming up. It will be mid-April. So mark your calendars, and I'm going to open that up to my Patreon subscribers first. There will be a limited number because we gotta keep it to a certain number of people, a certain number of guys. So if you haven't made plans for a vacation, or don't even make it a vacation, just make it a kind of a long weekend. Set it for right around the middle of April. And if you want to be involved in that, you've got to be, at least to start. I'm going to open it up for the first week to my Patreon subscribers. And then after that, if I have any tickets left or if I have any slots open, then I'll open it up to everybody. So watch my Patreon. I will have the information up probably by Friday. So go check that out. And a live event. You guys asked for it, so we're going to do it. That's it. Chris, thanks for joining me today. Anything else you want to say before we go?
Well, no, I just want to say again, yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed interacting with the chats, and yeah, I'm going to be putting my content together. Like I said, the Red Lens is here. It's going to be, it's going to be a different brand. It's not really Rule Zero, but the same principles are there. So, looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. And I'll see you on Troy Francis's show tomorrow. Okay, bye.